Brad.
Hello.
Freaking no. I'm wearing my freaking Joe's ice cream shop t-shirt, man.
Aidan, how you feeling?
Huh? You always say?
And you playing like a champ today?
Yeah. Yep.
Aidan.
hmm
How we doing, my brother?
I have what your dad had, I think.
Yeah, I had worse than everyone combined. I got my allergen tested today and they didn't I'm not allergic to anything that's like deathly, so we don't have a solution there. We're going to see if I have like the disease or some shit at the immunologist.
Mm.
Where's Big Steve though? Because we gotta film this quick. I got a CS midterm tomorrow.
Well, luckily it's just essential. 3 teams and then boom, boom, boom.
Yeah,
Or
really
2
does.
teams and boom, boom, boom. I feel like the Pirates will be the third longest.
Yeah, I didn't write much for the
Yeah.
Pirates. Big Steve? Stab. What's he doing?
All right, let me piss.
What?
He said he's taking a piss.
Taking a piss.
It's actually going to give a piss, but
Nah,
you're not like
he's stealing it. He's stealing the piss from someone.
No, but he's not.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Hmm.
Matthew Mackenzie Stevens, how are you doing today?
Stabs. What's he doing?
He's not here.
Stabs.
Phillies fan placed Astros baseball cards in the urinals at Citizens Bank Park.
Oh yeah. Big Steve.
Oh my God, it's Stubbs.
He's arriving.
It's Stubbs.
I'm just gonna
Matthew
load in.
motherfucking Stevens.
Matty Stevens.
I'm just gonna try and work with my iPad for now, and then when my
Whoops, I was muted.
thing.
I heard something about the Phillies cheating in 2010. Is that credible?
No.
I heard something about them using like binoculars or something.
The fuck, Aidan? What kind of Nats website are you looking at, my brother? Oh, let's see.
You're probably looking at let me see the web page. I think it's called DC Sports Capital, something like
Mhm.
that. Something like that.
Bad site.
Stav's got the toe iPad.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was like an accidental like the bullpen coach is using binoculars or something like that, and they were warned. But it was
I think every hey, our TikTok is at over 200 views.
Let's go, Brad.
That's good.
it's so easy.
We got 10 likes. We've gained, I think, let's see, likes. How do I do this? Um, anyways, the likes
Sandy is that guy.
5 of them are like people we don't know. So
Yeah.
we're
I'm getting
progressing.
there.
We're growing
We
in this
blowing
world.
up.
Yeah. Hey, 200 views isn't bad. Let me see. How's the podcast doing so far?
Work.
Analytics. We've gotten 0 today. Yeah, that's not true. So Spotify.com. Nope, Spotify podcast.
Right.
Your dashboard. Cat a
No,
log.
my dashboard.
I'm gonna pull my pants down.
Oh yeah.
Today is single-handedly the greatest day in Washington football history. Don't care.
Didn't
Chase
Not
Young
they,
is back.
haven't they won a Super Bowl?
Okay. Since I've been alive, greatest day in Washington football history. He might sell a team. He might get arrested. Chase Young is back.
Go Falcons.
The dude who shot Brian Robinson in custody, all in one day.
Go Falcons.
Okay.
Brad, name one Falcons player currently on the roster.
Marcus Mariota.
Oh yeah.
I was waiting for him to say Calvin Ridley.
Don't they also have like Kyle Pitts? Isn't that a guy?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I follow them on
They do
Instagram.
not have Calvin Ridley anymore.
Yeah, he went to like a psych ward.
He went to the Jaguars.
He went to the Jaguars.
Oh.
Which is the equivalent.
I know they have like a really good rookie offensive player. I don't know where he's. Aren't they in first?
Jake London.
They're in first in the
Yes,
in the
they're in
NFC
first in
East.
the
Yeah,
whatever.
NFC East.
Not the NFC
South.
East.
NFC
South.
South. Yeah.
Yep.
First place Falcons. Let's go Falcons, baby. The Stems iPad zoom out. Oh my god.
Stabs.
Yeah, it locks in on me.
Oh, I just turned.
Stabs, what's it doing?
It follows.
That's gotta be
No.
like sus.
Was you
Yeah,
gonna
does it
fucking
zoom out
watch
your
me
balls?
jerk off?
Yeah.
Come
Yeah,
on.
Zaddy.
What are we doing here?
All right. I'm good to go whenever you guys are.
Brad dies.
Dude, my hamstring hurts so bad.
I'm trying.
What
to
were
get
you
my
doing?
freaking
I pulled my
laptop up.
hamstring yesterday.
Yeah, doing what?
RDLs.
Legs.
Aidan,
Like
did
the
you see my
RDL.
text earlier?
The GPA one.
Yeah. Did I get a response to that and I just missed it?
He did not.
No, I didn't see him.
I said, Aidan, thoughts on GPA
Oh.
graphics for each division?
Yeah. So I think we
Could do
just gotta
report
pass.
cards too.
I think we just gotta pass up on the on the awards ones.
Yeah, that's fine. But I want
That yeah. But the GPA I can do. We could. Okay, what if we did a square and like if obviously because for Instagram, yeah, good job, Seth. And it's like 4 squares.
Shapes.
The logo in the middle, heads on each one with a grade. Like can you do the share screen thing real quick?
yeah.
Like the whiteboard. So like
Why are you not loading?
oh. And then like if we want to do the nationals, right, like a Curly W like in the middle, and then we'll have like Stev's head in the middle, Tom's head, your head, and then my head, right? And then the letter grade. So for the nationals, like Stev's did a D. I did or
As
whatever,
in Dick.
whatever.
I like that.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Because that's easy enough. Like I can
Yeah.
get that out tomorrow.
Yeah, just I need, I guess, 15 of them, one for each team. And
Yeah. Because I can just keep the thing and then just switch out the logo, switch out the grades, and good.
yeah,
That'll take me what to
yeah.
get it set up, and that's like, yeah, okay.
I think like the
I called off.
grade should
I'm
be
off to work,
like
so I can switch on.
the grade could be like a little fun font.
Yeah, we can do it like and like if it's like A's are green, F's are red,
These are
C's are
blue.
yellow,
Oh, I was
and
saying that they're all white. It's just like
okay.
obviously for Tom's Rockies grade, or we do it backwards F.
Yes.
Okay.
So just send in the group chat all the grades for each team, or you can just text me separately.
How does he know? He does it perfectly every time.
And then make sure you put for Tom's backwards F, just so I don't forget.
Yeah.
You have impeccable timing. We just started. Yeah. Yeah, we were filming. And we literally talked about this.
Does he enjoy it, Stevs?
Does Tyler enjoy sitting in silence while we film a podcast? Yes, definitely.
No, does he enjoy watching? Like
Do you
listening?
enjoy watching us make our podcast?
Yeah.
Yes, he thoroughly enjoys it.
He's the number one fan, truly.
All right. We
Yeah,
gotta
they're our
get
number
this.
one.
We gotta get this
Yeah.
going.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Let me take off this whiteboard and then we'll go. Okay. All right, welcome back to the 4A podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Today, you got your NL Central recap for the 2022 MLB season. Yesterday, you heard the National League East. Tomorrow, you're going to hear from the National League West. But this year, today, you're going to hear from a really interesting division this year. It was not too top heavy, like as in the teams at the top were juggernauts. The teams at the bottom just weren't very good. You had the story of the Brewers collapsing. You had the Cardinals, picking it up through the season. And then you had the Cubs, the Pirates, and the Reds. How we doing today, boys?
Doing pretty good. Are we gonna do the outfit checks today? Are we keeping that going?
It's up to you if you want them or not.
I'm pretty proud of this Joe's Italian Ice Shack shirt. On the back, it's a lot cooler, but like this is what I'm rocking with today. Steps, what you got?
I gotta show some Natitude hoodie. I clearly showed that yesterday in our episode. If you missed that, better go check it out.
Yeah, no, a Notre Dame play like a champion today shirt.
All right, I got my LA Dodgers t-shirt, just a nice little muscle t-shirt, just get the armpits going, keeping it loose. All right, so kicking it off, we head to St. Louis, where you have the St. Louis Cardinals. So, what do you guys think about this Cardinal season?
I think that they had a young core, and I feel like they definitely had standards to live up to. But I didn't have them winning the division. I had the Brewers winning the division. And we'll get into that more when we talk about the Brewers. But I was expecting this Cards team to be like maybe a 90 win team, but it's they kind of did impress in the sense that you got two MVP performances. One that no one expected. No one expected Paul Goldschmidt to be so good, and Nolan Arenado coming back and proving that the Coors effect is sometimes a myth, I guess. It's interesting to see how everything seemed to fire at the same time with the Cardinals. With that being said, I will say that the trade deadline was a bit underwhelming, and the playoff performance was mediocre at best. When you trade away the only bat that seemed to do something in the postseason in Harrison Bader and get two maybe B-level pitchers in Jordan Montgomery and Quintana, it's not like I can rate them that good, but it was a good season for the Cardinals. Aidan, what do you got on that?
No, I think I had them, fighting for the division. And I had them, I believe, kind of around this, picture. But I didn't have Goldschmidt winning the MVP. I didn't have, Arenado batting as well as he did, that is 10 straight gold gloves for Nolan Arenado, which is insane. Yeah, I had him at 91 and 71. So I definitely had them, fighting up for that division. But not in the way I thought. I thought maybe, everybody else would kind of chip in a little more. It'd be a equal fight. But Goldschmidt and Arenado carried their way this season.
Definitely the story of this Cardinals team was Paul Goldschmidt, without a doubt. He was a driving force the whole season. I don't really know if he ever stopped hitting the baseball. He, from start to finish, was an all-around great player. We all had him as our MVPs, I think, or at least the majority of us did. This past season, Nolan Arenado, again, like Aidan said, 10 straight Gold Gloves. Not much more you can really talk about like that. He's up there with a name like Ichiro Suzuki. He throughout the season, they were good. You had the Albert Pujols, Yadier Molina, Adam Wainwright kind of farewell tour, which I think kind of headed this team, but they just couldn't show up in the playoffs, and that was really unfortunate to see. Brad, you are muted.
I pulled an Aidan. So looking back at my preseason predictions, I had the Cardinals second. I think a lot of us really looked at this team and you're like, yeah, the bats are there, the defense is there. It's just there's nothing really to the pitching rotation. And that kind of proved to be an issue this year. Like the starting pitching, Michaelis and Wainwright were able to hit 190, 200 innings each. Wainwright not to the quality that he was last year. And, the Steven Matt signing, he was hurt for a while. And when he was there, he didn't pitch great. Flaherty wasn't healthy this whole year. And Matthew Liberatore, when he came up, he wasn't that great. I had down, just as in my preseason predictions, that the MVP for the Cardinals would be Paul Goldschmidt. Looked pretty good. And the breakout would be Albert Pujols. Nice. We're not going to talk about who I had for Cy Young or most important. Those aren't important nowadays. But the breakout of Ryan Helsley as the closer of that bullpen was something really, really important to their success this year. And going off of that, I believe, Tom, you brought us into the rookies. Can you talk a little bit more just about like the influence, like people like Nolan Gorman, Brendan Donovan they had?
They were just everyday players, and it's not even just the rookies this season. It was just the young core that they have. Nootbaar, you got let me just you can just look him up by now.
I have it if you need it. Like Lars Nootbaar, what a guy. Such a great name as well. He's got a 788 OPS on the year, good for a 126 OPS plus. That's really impressive, especially considering the fact that he plays in St. Louis, which is like always known for being a pitcher's park. This year it played. So over 100 is like, it doesn't favor either a batter or a pitcher. Below 100 would be favoring the pitcher. Above would be favoring a batter. The ballpark played to a 94, so it favored pitchers by 6%. And you still got guys putting up OPS pluses over 100. You got Brendan Donovan, who just went out and won a Gold Glove, also a 126 OPS plus. Nolan Gorman, I don't think he was as exciting as we wanted him to be. I think he would have been a really big staple in a Juan Soto trade, which might have really helped in the postseason. But something that you have to worry about for Nolan Gorman is that he just strikes out a lot. And Tom, you like Tommy Edman. Like this guy had a pretty good breakout year for himself, not in the traditional manner of, a big offensive season, but he put up a ton of defensive WAR, and that really helped him this year.
Yeah, this is a guy that can field behind you, and he's quick on the bases. I don't necessarily know if the Cardinals are like a number one stealing team in the league, but he's very fast and very efficient on the bases, which is why I think he's a really good like leadoff early in the lineup type guy. When you get him on base, he will steal. And what I was noticing just looking at the roster right now is the contrast between their pitching staff and the rest of the team. And I'm not saying that like sorry, the age difference is crazy. You got a very young core in the field, and yet your starting pitchers look like they're aged. Like you got Quintana, Montgomery, Wainwright. Who else we got? The closers are Michaelis too. The closer Hesley, Hesley. He's young. He's young. But you don't win without good starting pitching. And sure, they're good, but they are not going to be good for very much longer. I don't think that they can continue dominating the way they have been, just because age is going to catch up to them. And you see it a little bit, you know. But I will say Michaelis did surprise me this season in how good he pitched. I watched that almost no hitter live, as that entire week had like 3 no hitter scares, but none of them were actually real no hitters. But this team is fun to watch, and I think looking forward for the Cardinals, I think building a good pitching staff would be the one thing that would push them over the edge. They really look like a 100 plus win team with a good starting pitching staff.
Yeah, and no, Tom, you said it, the age and how, the lineup's young, the pitching, isn't that too young. I I might be one of the few, as a Nationals fan, I did like the Cardinals, possible package. As a Cardinals fan though, that like the young talent that you did not give up for one player, that's gonna come back and that is gonna be so crucial for them in their future. And I think it'll come back to show when Mason Wynn is like I'm just gonna say like an elite like defensive shortstop because second base Squimman's doing his thing and this and that. I think it's gonna come back to actually be good for them that they didn't make that trade. Obviously it stings this season because they didn't make it far in the playoffs. But I think in the long term, that trade is gonna work out. But no, definitely this offseason they have to focus on pitching. I mean, you get that pitching down, they're going to look like a scary team next year.
I definitely think they are 1 or 2 pieces away. I don't know who do they have to fill Yachty's place at catcher.
This year it was Andrew Kitzner.
Yeah, but
they said that they're going to go out and get 1 to 2 more pitchers. The manager came out and said, or the GM came out and said, we're going to go out and get 1 to 2 more catchers.
Okay,
Catchers or pitchers?
Catchers. Yeah, to fill up Yachty's spot.
Because I'm looking at their active roster, and Ivan Herrera's here. He's 22.
And I had to keep out
Andrew Nizer.
Yeah, no, and I had to keep it. Somebody to keep a look on would be Wilson Contreras.
That's fair.
Catches.
That is something I heard,
So,
but Cubs fans around the world would hate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this is just an example of a really well-run organization. I think they're going to be a problem for a while. I mean, when you build a team like this, you kind of create your own dynasty. And I don't know if their postseason reflects how good they've been, but if they could eventually start to perform in September and October, I think that it will actually start to show that they're a force to be reckoned with, and they're going to be a force to be reckoned with for a long time. That's how you manage a team.
I mean, even you look at 2019, they made it to the CS. I mean, did they get swept by the Nats? Yes. But I mean, that Nats team was a team for for destiny, and I just I don't think that playoff success is the problem. This year they had the pieces for the regular season, but not the pieces for the playoffs. If that makes any sense.
Yeah. That does. No, like. They tried to address the starting pitching concerns without spending as much as possible. Like they really could have gone out and gotten an A-list starter this trade deadline in either Luis Castillo or what would have been Frankie Montas, even though we know that didn't end great. But getting Jordan Montgomery, I think, was a really underrated move at the time. Like obviously it did cost Harrison Bader, but we knew that he wasn't going to provide much value to them in the regular season throughout the year. And it was still at a time where they hadn't clinched the division. They had a sizable lead on the Brewers, but they really needed the starting pitching to carry them into the postseason. And they also got Jose Quintana, which honestly wasn't a bad move, and it really paid off. He was really good down the stretch, and he started game 1 for them against the Phillies. He went 5 1/3 scoreless. It's just in the end, the bats didn't show up.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I will say the Quintana trade definitely looked better in my eyes than the Montgomery Bader trade. I mean, that's just basing off of what we already know. We saw Bader tear it up in the postseason, and he's having a great time. He's in New York. He's from New York, I think, right? He grew up there.
Right above.
So I mean, it's probably better for Harrison Bader, but as a team, as an organization, you just traded away one of the best fielding center fielders in the game, who is an awfully streaky player who can make the difference in a postseason like that. So I don't know if I necessarily think it's a good move yet, but maybe it'll pay off in the future.
Well, you traded Bader, but at the same time, when you traded Bader, he wasn't healthy. He when he hit New York, then he finally, got, like kind of went uphill. Played it in AAA. They called him up, and then obviously he was a big name in the playoffs. But you can't predict Betas going to go out and be, have the most home runs to the division series. That's not something that you can, predict. So at the time, I think it was a good trade. Obviously, for the playoffs, they could have used a bat like him. But even in St. Louis, he's not going to hit 5 home runs in the playoffs to however many he did. He's just not going to.
Something that you're also doing is like you're doing an even swap of contracts. Like they're both arbitration eligible for one more year. And the Cardinals, Harrison Bader in a regulars, like in a normal season, besides last year in 2021, he looked pretty good. This year he didn't. He's not going to be a fantastic bat. He's going to be a near league average bat with really above average defense. And they had people who could replace him. And so I really think, they have people who can replace him. And they also have other players that are going to come up in a year or two, like Jordan Walker, Mason Wynn. And Tommy Edmonds showed that he could play a really good center field if they needed him to. Because you also have to find a spot for Nolan Gorman if that comes into the situation. Pretty good situation to be in. Where I don't think Harrison Bader was losing that bad in the grand scheme of things, because you do have Jordan Montgomery for another year, who's going to be like a pretty good front line, like number 2 starter.
Yeah, and I have a question just about someone that I want to highlight this. What happened to Tyler O'Neill? I mean, this is a guy who hit 34 home runs last season. I'm just curious what happened to his success.
He was really injury plagued, and he was someone who relies on like building off of previous successes. And like last year, he started getting better and better. And if you look at his like monthly splits last year, like he built up as the season went on. Like his best months were August and September. And this year, since he was getting injured so much, like he couldn't really get into that rhythm where he kept growing, and he kind of just stayed behind there.
Yeah. With that being said, do you think that he comes back next season?
I don't think to the degree he did last year. Like last year was like an anomaly, I think, for a player of his stature. Like he's a 6'2" big Canadian man, or I don't even think he's 6'2" to be honest.
It's
He's like,
5'11".
yeah, no, he's not. He's like 5'9".
I'm looking at his baseball reference. He's
Yeah, but
5'11".
no, like that's me saying I'm 5'11". Um, but he's like big, strong Canadian man. Like that build's not the best for baseball. Um, I think that he'll be better. I think he'll find a mean between the two of those. I think maybe like an 800 OPS, 30 bombs, maybe some swipes in there as well.
Yeah, he's definitely quick on the bases.
Yeah,
Um,
I think if they're gonna have a successful season next year, I think more pieces than just Goldschmidt and Arenado, need to come, to fruition, and I think they have to make a couple moves in free agency, but I don't think they have to make a big splash, and go out and sign one of those like top free agents.
Yeah,
Um,
I can see
you
that.
ready for some grades?
Yeah, man.
Get
Report
into it.
card.
Report card. All right, Tom, lead us off with your grades for these Cardinals.
I gave him an A, and I give them an A because similar to the video we talked about in the past, the regular season success just completely overshadows their postseason failure. And I think this season, I know this is an MLB recap, but if you look down at the minor leagues, you see these players that are going to be coming up in the next few years. It's quite frankly terrifying. Jordan Walker and Mason Wynn are not very pleasing to look at as another baseball fan. I don't like. I don't know. It's gonna be a painful couple of years coming up with the Cardinals and the future that they have. So just basing off of that, I give them an A.
I'll go next. I had him at a solid B. They had a good season all around. Fucking Tom's looking at me like I'm crazy. I mean, they had a good season, right? But again, your how you grade is different than how I grade, right? You you prioritize regular season success. I prioritize their postseason success. And throughout the season, they came back. They made that run and passed the Brewers for the NL Central title, and they just flamed out every season. It's the same story with the Cardinals. I feel
Oh,
they
it's
always
backwards again.
they always flame out every season, and it's just upsetting to watch year after year after year.
Wait, this is my right hand. Hold on. Wait, this is right. This says L Steves. I
No,
wrote it backwards.
No,
this
it
time.
doesn't. It's
And
backwards.
it's backwards.
You
Is it
have
really?
yes.
My screen isn't reversed. Then I'm not stupid. I swear. Aiden, just take it from here. Take it from here.
Okay, yeah, no, I'm on the fence between a B plus and an A minus. Um, I'm gonna give them an A minus for one reason. Now, this might sound really dumb. I think if they got Soto, I think it would have been if they got Soto and they didn't make, any progress in the playoffs, I think they would have been a B plus. But I like that they kept that young core together. Tom just said it perfectly. They're going to be dangerous in the future. Um, and this season, I mean, they won the division. I don't know many people who thought that they were going to win the division. I think it might have been a 75-25, maybe 70-30 from them and Brewers. But they came out. I do think the Brewers might have, helped them a little bit and handed it down to them. And we'll talk about that soon. But yeah, A minus.
Yeah, I think that this wasn't a fantastic team. I think it was a good baseball team. And if I'm grading it to scale of what they were supposed to be, I had them as an 86 win team and they ended up winning 93. But I think a lot of it isn't necessarily the fact that they were better than everyone thought they would be, is that the Brewers were worse and they were able to capitalize on that. Overall, I still think you're like a pretty good season. Like they had some good hot stretches. It's just at no point was I scared of the Cardinals. It was always like, you know what, they're kind of winning in a meh division. So I got to give them a B plus for that. Still like a fine grade. It's just not to the degree of like an A minus A.
Yeah, no, fair point. Yeah.
So with that, the Cardinals win the division, but you can't win the division without the Brewers selling. Literally, they traded away Josh Hader. They didn't get the big bat that we thought that we were promised all year long. And this is a team that lives and dies by their pitching. Their pitching was good this year, but their bats just weren't excellent. Like they weren't amazing. And at the end, how the Brewers were really pushing for that final wild card spot. It was a battle of them and the Phillies of who could lose more. And it ended up being the Brewers who lost more. They couldn't make the playoffs. And something that you really have to look at just immediately is that after they traded Josh Hader away, the bullpen blew 15 saves. Aidan, what do you think about that?
Man, I have a connection with the Brewers, so I like the Brewers. They're one of my favorite teams in the NL. But man, oh man, did they? I mean, that deadline, trading away Hader, I honestly it might have been the dumbest thing they could have done that season. I know he's gonna hit free agency and they don't want to pay him, but if you keep Hader, you make the playoffs. I think it's that simple. Do you know how many games they blew after they traded Hader?
I just said they blew
He
15.
just said that, Aiden.
15.
He just said that.
15, you said?
Yes.
Holy cow! I didn't hear that. But 15 games. I mean, even if you just blow half of those, you're in the playoffs. You're choosing it. It pains me. It does. But Tom, what are your thoughts on this collapse mainly?
Can someone pull up my prediction for the Brewers? Because this was my
I
hot
didn't
take.
pull it up. I'll get it.
This was my hot take that the Brewers would have one of the best records in all of MLB. I really thought that with such a three-headed monster with the starting pitchers and the best closing duo of all time, not like of all time, but like in the league right now, along with a decent lineup hitting wise, I didn't think that there was a chance that they wouldn't crack 100 wins. So you got my number?
You had them at 102 and 60.
Yeah, I thought they were going to crack 100. I mean, this is a team who I thought had a great front office. I mean, they fleeced. I like using that word. They fleeced the White Sox, the Red Sox, and got Hunter Renfroe for Jackie Bradley Jr., who literally like forgot how to play baseball after that. You got a breakout season from Rowdy Tellez. You got Willie Adames, who figured out how to hit down there in Milwaukee. And you have I thought Yelich would come back and be a little bit more effective, but this is a team like Colton Wong, Keston Hiura. I thought those two would have bounce. I thought Hiura would have a bounce back season. He definitely had a down season last season. I was expecting a good comeback. I was expecting the bats to wake up a little bit, and I knew that the Brewers had some young players lined up like Garrett Mitchell, who I thought honestly would be called up earlier in the season, not in the last month. But it was a little. No, I'm saying Hiura was good, but he was not as good as he was before pre 2020. COVID hit and he kind of forgot. He kind of collapsed. And this deadline trade reminds me of that one meme where it's like we have this at home. Taylor Rogers is just the Walmart version of Josh Hader. He's like just worse. He's tall and lanky, left-handed closer who's just not as good as Josh Hader. And then they traded for Dinelson Lamet, who I honestly thought, just judging by the fact that the Brewers are excellent at developing pitching, I thought they would make Dinelson Lamet into a star. I was like, this is genius. This is a project. I like the Brewers front office for doing this. And then they dropped him the next day, and I was like, what was this for? And now what I once respected as an organization, I now have no idea what their intentions are. And I really thought that this was one of the best runs organizations in the league. I don't know what you guys think on that, but I was pretty sure that
They didn't necessarily like drop Lamet. Their goal was to try and get him into the minor leagues, and it's just because they didn't have enough roster space for him, and that the Rockies claimed him. And if the Rockies are claiming someone, that means it passed by a lot of teams before it got to them. So I think the Brewers were like really hoping that I would actually work. I think something that we just have to accept, which was really disappointing, is that just Christian Yelich isn't the same anymore. Like he had 2018, 2019 where he was one of the best players in baseball. He just hasn't been the same since fouling that ball off of his knee, which is like, it's a real disappointment, but it's just an unfortunate truth that we kind of have to accept. Tom, you brought up that Jackie Bradley Jr. trade for Hunter Renfroe, and it's just looking better. Like Hunter Renfroe had a great year. Like,
that's what
yeah, like OPS over 800, like just like a cannon for an arm, pretty good defense. Like he was probably the best bat in that lineup outside of Rowdy Tellez. And something that I think like needs to happen next year, which we'll get into a little bit, is Luis Urias needs to be playing every day. Like the dude had a really good season for himself. And the Brewers that are a team that are struggling for offense in some ways, like you need to have your best guys on the field whenever you can, especially in a situation where you're competing for a wild card and you just missed the playoffs. Like you need your best of the best on the field. Something I do want to highlight about this team is how good their pitching was, though. Like again, like Corbin Burns, not to the degree he was last year, but still he's an ace. And so do you have thoughts about that pitching?
Well, no, not really, but just overall, their season was a letdown, as we've all said over and over again. But I don't think, because at the time of the Taylor Rogers trade, it was Josh Hader who was first in everything out of the pen for Taylor Rogers, who was second in everything. Those were the two main pieces in the trade, right? And then you added in Dinelson Lamet, and then they still got two prospects out of that trade. They got Robert Gasser and Echeverry Ruiz, who will they amount to anything? We will find out. But Robert Gasser is an amazing name for a pitcher. I just want to point that out. Their season was a letdown through and through. Everyone expected them to win, and it's just such a shame because this Brewers organization they're running out of time. I don't think they have a very big window left at all.
Yeah, and something that's about Echeverry Ruiz real quick. On the 2080 scale, he grades that as a 10 for his power. Like I think he's got as much power as like a freshman on JV. Like he slaps the ball around, and that's really about it.
Okay.
Yeah, I like Gasser. I do. I think he'll come. He'll come to the majors and really. I think he'll probably be recognized as like one of the main pieces in that trade. Yeah, he will gas it. But another thing, I think they're gonna not blow it up because I don't think that'd be smart. They're just gonna like kind of what the Nationals were doing for a bit. trade some pieces, get some new ones back. I think there's going to be a lot of new faces next year, but I think they're still going to be competitive and fighting for that division. They need some contact bats in that lineup. I think just you have all these big power names in this lineup, and I think you need those contact bats, at least two of them this offseason to really get on base for those power guys. So if they can get on, they those home runs count more than one run or 2 runs here.
All right, you guys ready for the grades?
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, Steph, start us off. What you got?
Oh, you don't want me to start. I had them in a C minus. It's just their overall collapse was just so disheartening. You can't say, "Oh God," because we've all sat here and just trashed on them the whole season. We all
Oh no, I
you
gave him a
said it
worse grade.
yourself.
No, I
Oh,
really
you gave him a worse grade?
Yeah.
Okay. But it's just they had a terrible season. Not anything as bad as the Rockies or the Nationals, right? But just their overall collapse was terrible. And you can't, as an organization that's supposed to be contending for your championship, you can't have a collapse like that.
I agree. Like, I think we all had such high expectations for this Brewers team. Like, we really thought the law firm of Woodruff and Burns would be really important. And it was. They were good. Devin Williams was good. It's just you had this. You had the pinnacle. You were at the top and you played to the bottom of the ladder. You were the first rung of that ladder. You were supposed to be the team that went into the playoffs. You might have been the 3 seed, but you were supposed to do damage in the playoffs. You were supposed to make a run for the World Series. Like, I think there were a couple of people who had the Brewers making the World Series, possibly winning it with their pitching rotation. The bats didn't show up. We didn't get a good bat. They got rid of Josh Hader, the best left-handed reliever, if not the best reliever in the National League and the MLB, and MLB, excuse me. It's just a disappointment, and that's why I gave him a D+.
Yeah, I wasn't far from you. I got a D. That's the lowest I can give him without an F. Oh no. I said, either way, I gave the Brewers the D, a D, and I think that the front office, I hate how some front offices are run. I don't understand. When you finesse a team like the Red Sox and you pull off all of these stunts to get really good, like a really good team behind you, I just don't know how you let that slide. So I'm giving them, okay. Aiden, what you got on this?
A C minus. It could have been a D+. It could have. There's so many questions about not just this season, but also going into this off season and going into next season of what they're gonna do. Obviously, they missed the playoffs, which you missed the playoffs. Jeez, but I mean, there's too many questions for me to give them anything better than a C minus, and we all give them less than a C minus, rightfully so. But how many wins did they get?
6.
86?
Yeah.
Yeah, there were 7 games back.
Yeah, they won 86 games and they got all C minuses or worse. That might be a record.
Not
I mean, they were
necessarily.
only 1 game behind the Phillies for the wild card.
It's all perspective. I mean, obviously, if like the Cincinnati Reds win 86 games, then yes. But if you have a team that's like rumored to make the World Series, then 86 games, it's all relative to how much talent you have on the team. And when you have that much talent, 86 wins is very underwhelming. I'm telling you that.
No, and I agree. And I think if they kept Hader, they look at, honestly, 90, 95 wins and pushing, for the you're making a deep run, in my opinion, if they don't trade Hader.
I think I disagree with you there a little bit, just briefly. Because you have to remember when they traded him, he was in the worst slump of his career.
Yeah, it's true. And then when
he kept that too.
Yeah, and it took him a month to figure it out. Like, it ended up being that his release point was off, and there had to be some mental issues considering like there's issues with his wife's pregnancy. But like, you have to think there's still going to be that interval where he was still going to be really bad, and I don't think that gets him to that 90-win team.
I could
Well, I
see
mean,
90. I couldn't
I was
see
about to say,
95.
yeah, I was about to say, like, when I say 90-95, they at 86, after he left, they blew 15 games. You think if he's at least pitching in those games, he at least saves 4 of those, right? I mean, so I know he's in a slump, but even with, okay, maybe he doesn't get all 15, he gets 10 to 12. I mean, I think he can still save at least 4 of those games, get them to a 90-win team. I think with him, you make the playoffs.
All right, you guys ready to move on to the Cubs?
Yeah,
Steph,
let's get on to
ready
the
to sign
Cubs. You
out?
want me to go on to the Cubs? I'll go on to the
Yep.
Cubs. All right. So we're gonna talk about the Cubs now. They had a season. It wasn't anything special. I think they kind of outperformed what all of us expected. I think we all kind of expected them be bottom two, and they were by far they were better than the Reds easily and the Pirates. So it was shocking to me to see the Cubs play this well, especially after the deadline that they had last season, getting rid of guys like Anthony Rizzo, Chris Bryant, Javier Baez. And this year, the big thing was Ian Happ and Wilson Contreras. What were they going to do? What was going to happen with them? Trade deadline comes and goes, and they were still Cubs. So this upcoming offseason is going to be very pivotal. We're going to have to see what they're going to do with them, or are they just going to let them walk, which is going to be very, very fun to see. But a big point I wanted to talk about was Seiya Suzuki, their rookie that they had coming out of Japan. And he played well, not anything special, not rookie of the year by far, anything, but he did get a couple votes from us for rookie of the year. And what do you guys think about the Cubs season?
I mean, Steph's, while I'm talking, can you pull up my prediction? But
Yeah, I got you.
I see a lot more talent on this team than I would have thought. I mean, whether you want to consider it a breakout season or not, I would say Nico Horner and Morel are both breakout seasons for those two. You got good production from Stroman, not like crazy, but and I mean Patrick Wisdom probably struck out 850 times. I mean this team's not like for a team that I honestly thought would have lost like 100 games. I don't. They kind of impressed me. I will say the trade deadline was a little bit underwhelming. I was expecting them to trade Contreras and Happ, and that was a little disappointing. I feel like you could have gotten a lot more value. They have a decent farm system, but not. Is it a top farm system, Brad? It's not like a crazy deal, right?
It's not that great, to be
That's
honest.
what I'm saying.
Isn't
So,
it? Is it above average?
I'll get that for you
Probably.
real quick.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tom, you had them at 72 and 90, so you had them going only 2 games worse than what they actually did.
damn, I'm really good at this then. But I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of
Yeah,
holes to fill
102
in this
win
team.
Brewers, but
Hey, they let me down. I think to pick up a Framil Reyes, at least for the weeks, a couple weeks after that, he did cool down, but I think that was a great, as you say, 10th, Brad. Yeah, I think that Framil Reyes was probably one of the best moves that front office made that season. I think he wasn't like a big difference maker, but he was definitely a bat in that lineup that could hit. And he came out of. I didn't think that the Guardians would drop him. So I think it caught me off guard that they got him. I don't know. I mean, I'm not like an avid Cub watcher, but on the games I tuned into, it wasn't the most entertaining thing. And I honestly think that they have a couple more years in a rebuild. Would you guys consider this a rebuild? Because they're not really trading away
No,
those pieces yet.
I think so, and I think they need to fully commit to the rebuild, and I think that's what they should have done at the deadline. Tom, you said it perfectly. I'm disappointed in what they did at the deadline. I think with Happ and Contreras, both of them should have been gone. But I don't think we're talking about Nico Horner enough. He had, I mean, could you call this a breakout season?
By the style of play he has, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, 10 home runs, and I mean, he's not a power bat, but I mean, he was putting the ball in play. I think he batted 289, which isn't bad at all for Nico. And it's just these names for the Cubs kind of kept them, better than obviously the bottom 2 teams. I had them at 84 wins, I believe. So yeah, I was a little more high on these Cubs just because of Contreras and because of Hap, and I thought they were going to do more work than they did. Um, but I'm disappointed by not only the season but the deadline mainly. Brad, what would you think on?
So also not a huge Cubs person here, but I went into the season thinking they'd be 80 and 82. I don't see the Cubs as much of a losing organization anymore. Like obviously, like before this whole World Series run, like the improbable team, like definitely like the losing Cubs. But this year was really the first year that they played without, the core of that World Series team. Like Bryant was gone, Rizzo was gone, Schwarber was gone. The only one left was Wilson Contreras. Um, and I thought that the reason I thought this team would be pretty good is they had a couple rookies coming up that I thought were going to be pretty good in the bullpen, mainly Scott Efros, who isn't even with the organization anymore. Um, but I thought that with a combination of Contreras, Patrick Wisdom, Ian Happ, and Seiya Suzuki, to be honest, that this would have been a pretty good lineup. And I thought that they were going to really feast on the really bad teams in that division, and that was really going to boost their record to make them look like a better team than they actually were. Something that I had thought would be that like a Kyle Hendricks, kind of like redemption season was coming, but he spent a lot of this season on the IL. And Marcus Stroman, the signing, I'm still trying to figure out. Like he wasn't as good as we thought there was. Yeah, Ian Happ was there. Um, I forgot to mention his name. Like I did think he was going to be a pivotal part, and
Yeah.
I will think he will be interesting this offseason. Um, and like one of the reasons they didn't trade Contreras and App is like their hope to extend him, but it's going to look even worse if this offseason goes and then they're with different organizations. Um, but they're really hurting themselves by not declaring a rebuild. They're doing a better version of what the Rockies are doing by like still trying to win a couple games, but just not fully entering a rebuild, but still trying to get those new pieces at the same time.
I mean, you look. I saw a picture late in the season. I went to a Cubs game, this season, but uh, Chicago is an amazing just sports city. You know, at the point they had 70 wins. The season was completely over. Late in the season, they had a sellout at a 12 o'clock game mid-season. Later in the season, a sellout, even though they suck. So I think, we talked about the Mets and how when the Mets are good, baseball's good. I think I'm going to bring the Cubs into that conversation too. When the Cubs are good, I think it's better for baseball. I think those are the two of the better team, bigger teams that just need to be good for baseball to be, really good.
Yeah, and I think that when you were talking about the fact that you thought they were gonna, I think we said 84 games.
Yeah,
Just
84.
you can't. The thing that this Cubs team proves is that you need you need stars on both sides of the field. You got Contreras, you got Happ, you got Madrigal. And Madrigal's not crazy, but you got Horner, I mean, you have a decent team on paper, but I can name three pitchers from the staff. This is probably one of the most unknown staffs. I mean, I don't watch the Cubs, but like this is Wade Miley, Drew Smiley. They sound similar, and Marcus Stroman. I don't recognize a single another one of those names on the list. Maybe Adrian Sampson, but other than that, I don't recognize. Yeah, and even that, like what, like these are guys I've never heard before. I don't see it like a team winning without star power on both sides, and you see teams like the Brewers who have amazing pitching but no hitting. This is the other side of it, and they're seeing similar results. Not incredibly similar, but they're still losing. And it's not like basketball. It's not like NBA where you can have one player that makes all the difference. Having two stars in Wilson Contreras and Ian Happ is useless to a team in the sense that you won't win with just those two there. So yeah.
I was definitely a guy that we have not really talked about at all. Is Christopher Morrell. He had a very good season, very good showing. And yes, I know I said it, and I do you want me to restart it, Brad? Yeah, yeah. To fuck heaven. Okay,
Oh,
we're gonna
no.
restart it.
No, we're not.
It's too late.
Uncut
We're restarting
footage.
it because we've uncut footage. A guy
If
we
we're
definitely
restarting, I'm
haven't.
taking a piss. Hold on. I'll
Fuck
be right back.
you. Well,
The
I guess
Stevs,
we're
you can talk.
restarting.
You can talk. You can talk.
A guy we definitely need to talk about more was Christopher Morel. He had a great season through and through. One of the guys that I heard his name, and for a Cubs organization that was kind of, we say rebuild and stuff like that, but they kind of weren't. I think they're trying to retool more than rebuild. And if they have a good offseason and free agency, they're gonna have, I think they're gonna be somewhat competitive in this lackluster NL Central next season, right? We've talked about it. Trey Turner is a name that's kind of been brought up with the Cubs, which wouldn't make sense to me. But if they pay him and he wants to get paid more than win, Chicago might be the place for him. Morel batted 235 though this season, which is amazing. He had 16 home runs, 47 RBIs, 10 swipes. It's good for a guy like that, coming in, being young and playing well. And a pitcher we didn't talk about was Adbert Alzolay. He had a great season. Nothing really to write home about. Didn't really play in that many games. I think he was hurt for majority of the season, but when he did pitch, he played well.
So one thing that I look back on is the 2021 trade for Nick Madrigal for Craig Kimbrell, and every day that trade just looks better and better for the Chicago Cubs, like, and worse for the Chicago White Sox. Like, first of all, they got Kimbrell and he was horrible last year, and then they traded Kimbrell to the Dodgers for AJ Pollock this year, and AJ Pollock wasn't good for them. So it's just looking like this. The acquisition of Nick Madrigal was a really good move for the Cubs, even though he wasn't able to play as much this year. Like, the speedy contact, like, dynamic that they're starting to build is actually going to be really interesting to see how it plays over time with this rebuilding team.
Absolutely. And I think who's the young guy? Crow Armstrong, is that what his name is?
Sean Crow Armstrong.
Yeah, he's fast too. I think Aidan, are you all right, man?
I was muted, but yeah, Pete Crow Armstrong.
Yeah, he's something. I mean, they have a decent, I think better than you credit the Brad farm system. I think that they would have a top 5 farm system. You said they were average.
I said above average.
No,
They're
no, no.
10.
That's what I'm telling you. I'm saying, but like they would be top 5 if they were trading their stars. And do you think that owners, like, in quotations, owe it to the fans to go out every year and try and win games? Like, because I feel like that's the only thing that's holding teams back from doing things like the Reds and the Nats have done, you know? And I feel like that's what the mentality of the Rockies organization is, what this organization is, you know? Is it, would you guys think that?
I I just think they need to show the fans that they got to pick a direction. I think the fans, if you just keep on doing this for another 5 years, the fans are going to be mad at going, about 500 every year. You either have to blow it up and say, hey, we got all these young guys, we're excited about the future to go, watch them like the Nats just did, or you have to just buy, everything. Go into free agency, which I think would be dumb, but go into free agency, get yourself some star players. Don't, re-sign Contreras and Happen these guys. Which, like I said, I think would be dumb. I think you have to rebuild, but you have to show the fans some direction.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. Does you got anything to say?
No, I was gonna say, do you guys want to get into grades?
That's exactly what I was gonna say.
We're right there together. Why don't you go first, Tom? I went first last time.
I give them a whopping C. They did exactly what I thought they were gonna do, except for trade the big pieces. I think that's why I got to put them as a C. I think their end goal is to obviously get back to the position they were a couple years ago, and they're not there right now, and they won't be until they start to realize that they need to get into a rebuild. And I feel like the front office was a little dodgy with that, so I can't give them anything better than a C.
I was, for the first time ever, I think we might have agreed on a grade. I was right there with you at a C. I think they could have done more, but their season wasn't a failure at all. By any stretch of the imagination. I don't think their season was a failure. I think it was a good season. They just needed to trade those pieces. They didn't. Now they gotta hope they re-sign them, I guess.
Yeah, I was a little bit more pessimistic than you guys. I went with a C minus. I just thought that, like, really not trading at the trade deadline hurt them a lot. I know those guys are like hometown guys and you want to keep the crowd interested. You want to, like, let them believe that there's some ounce of hope, but there wasn't. and you're setting yourself back a little bit more. Again, especially if you don't get those guys this offseason, like it's just more money that they're going to have to spend. And I think it's going to hurt them in the long run. So I got to give them a little bit of a downgrade from you guys, and that's a C minus.
No, I'm absolutely with you. I have a C minus as well, and I think uh, honestly, there was no C for me with them. I think it's a C minus. If they traded their guys, it was a C plus. I'm skipping C. I just that's how much that, like, I'm not gonna say meant to me because I don't it's, I don't care for the Cubs, but I just this offseason they really need to pick, which direction they're gonna go in. Um, that's the Cubs. What about the Cincinnati Reds? Brad.
They were a baseball team. I think the issue with this team is it really just felt like a lot of names in the lineups that were just placeholders. Like you had people like Kyle Farmer, Aristides Aquino, Donovan Solano, Mike Moustakas, and Nick Senzel. Like those are like Mike Moustakas nowadays, like kind of just a placeholder until someone better comes along. Um, but like this team, they sold before the season. Like they got rid of Winker, they got rid of Suarez, they sold Castillo in the middle of the season, and they got rid of Tyler Mahle at the trade deadline as well. Like they got rid of their really big pieces. Castellano opted out. And as a result of all that, they just weren't good. And it's as simple as it comes to. Like they're a team that is rebuilding, and they did a really good job of getting the prospects that they needed to get.
Yeah, and let's keep in mind to start the season through the first 25 games, they won 3. I thought they were going to break the all-time record. I thought they were going to lose like 120 games or something. I mean, I don't know what the record is, but I really thought this would be like one of the worst teams of all time. And I'm not saying they pulled it together, but they really this similar to the Nats for what it was, for what the season goal in mind. I don't think they did horrible because at the beginning of the season, before the season started, they were ranked 15th in farm system, and after the season, right now they're ranked 4th. They did exactly what they were supposed to do this season. They were supposed to be bad and move up in the farm ranking, and now they have a very good team. And that trade for Castillo, they got a lot in return. I mean, don't get it wrong. Don't get it wrong. The Mariners won just because they got immediate like rewards. But who knows? In the next couple of years, we see a lot of those big name players come up, and they have not only just quality of players, but they have quantity now. They have a lot of players in that system. So I'm pretty high on the Reds. I do think they sold too early. I think with how good they were and how much of a team they had around them 2 years ago, I don't think they was ready. I don't think it was time to sell, but they put their foot down. It's over, and I think that they're set for the next couple of years.
They
Well,
definitely need to make something out of this team. They have a couple names. They have Hunter Green. They have Jonathan India, right? But they don't have they need to develop more. And I think they did that. They got the pieces that they needed to do that with. It's just gonna take time, and I think they're gonna need to trade away more pieces. I think there are, like Brad was saying, there's kind of just those placeholders, guys like Mike Moustakas and Joey Votto. It might be time to see Joey Votto in another uniform.
Never.
I kind of disagree with that just because of his age. Like Joey Votto,
retired.
he was hurt and really couldn't play this year. And I think that the reason that he didn't finish out the season and got the shoulder surgery was so that he could have one last stand, like give it one last go, have one, hopefully for his sake, good final season. And then, ride off into the sunset. But you mentioned Hunter Green and Jonathan India. Like, I think this team's so young. Like Hunter Green led the team with 125 innings pitched. And he struck out so many batters, but the shape on his fastball is just so poor. Like it got punished. It got pummeled all over the yard. And Jonathan India really took like a huge step backwards from his Rookie of the Year campaign last year. He was one of the worst hitters in baseball. Like his WOBA on four seamers last year, like what he really did his damage on was 473. And this year was still a respectable 391, but you can just see like how even on his best things, he regressed a ton. And he's a piss poor defender. So if he's not hitting, then like there's not any value there with him.
Yeah, no, I think back to Joey Votto. I think you're right. I think he needs to go out and say, "Hey, this is my final season. Give it one last, swing around, and then go into. I would not mind to see him go somewhere into coaching for these Reds. Not saying something like Ross did with the Cubs and take over as the manager, but just somewhere as maybe just a guy in the locker room. For these young guys, because this is going to be a young team for some time to come up. Just somewhere for these young guys to, they have a question, they have this, that he's there, almost like an advisor for the team. But they said they were going to go in there and, obviously they sold. And this is a perfect example of a rebuild, a successful rebuild so far. I mean, like Tom said, he went from 15th, I think he said, to 4th in in the prospect rankings, which is amazing in one season. So they're definitely headed in the right direction. I think it'll be interesting to see what they do in these next upcoming years.
Yeah, and boosting that farm system, it was really important that Brendan Jury and Tommy Pham had like good enough seasons. Like Brendan Jury had his career year when he was with the Reds, and I was able to get him traded to the Padres, get a little package in return, nothing huge, but also sending Tommy Pham to the Red Sox, which was surprising that the team would actually buy Tommy Pham. We can get into the Red Sox offseason later in these recaps, but just or the Red Sox regular season, but being able to actually like deal off someone like Tommy Pham, even after the whole fantasy football incident, um, like just the Reds capitalized on the opportunities that they had present. Especially with that, like the breakout of what will be Nick Lodolo. Like he struggled at first and then he like really settled in down the stretch. Like he's someone I wouldn't be surprised having a 3.2 ERA next year. Like a really good campaign, maybe like 160 innings, 3.2 ERA. And then brother of Edwin, Alexis Diaz, good reliever, like his brother, similar motion, probably going to produce same results.
Yeah, let's go grades real quick. Let's see. What did I give them? I gave them a C. I think mixing in their goals and their regular season success, I think the best I can give them is a C. I think I can raise it to a C plus though, just because it seemed to work for them. I don't know. The fact that Drury did well and everything seemed to fall into place really got their pieces together. And they fixed their farm system. They made it better at least. But yes, that's what you think of it.
I'm gonna let Aiden go next.
Okay.
No, I think it's a C plus just because we knew that they were gonna suck. Obviously, this isn't a good team. Um, but it's huge to me that they got the farm system from 15th to 4th. I think that's huge, into giving it a C plus, and I think it's that simple for me. Brad, what are your thoughts?
I also agreed with the C plus, like the baseball on the field. Like honestly, you mentioned that like 3-22 start or whatever. They still didn't finish out great, but they played like 400 ball for the rest of the season after that, which isn't good. Don't get me wrong there, but that's still a lot better than they were on pace for. But the most important thing is they really did retool the farm system. And so that earns a C plus for me.
For me, I had him. I think I had him the highest. I had him rated a B minus. The only reason I had them in that low B tier was they won more games than I think anyone expected after 25 games, which, yeah, that happens. Obviously, it's small sample size, right? But 62 games after winning 3 in the first 25 is very impressive. And also on top of that, it was the retooling of uh the farm system. And I definitely think in the long run, assuming the Mariners do not win a World Series with Castillo on the roster, the Reds definitely won that trade. But anything's possible, right? But let's get into arguably one of the worst teams in the league, and the Pittsburgh Pirates. They had, I guess we've said this for the last 3 teams now, they had a season. They're a baseball team, right? There's nothing special about the Pirates. They had one guy that was making headlines in O'Neill Cruz. They have Brian Reynolds. They have Brian Hayes and guys like that. Trade away Daniel Vogelbach at the deadline to the Mets. Got a couple pieces back. Nothing crazy, but Pirates pretty quiet season, but a pretty good season too.
Yeah, like the thing with the Pirates is it's another team like where you kind of know where they want to go. It's just they don't have the right means to do so. Like they're not as analytically inclined as they should be. Like if this team had an ounce of analytics, they could have been like the Orioles this year. Like they're getting prospects and like the trades like Richard Rodriguez getting Bryce Wilson back in the 2021 trade deadline. You got the Daniel Vogelbach trade, stuff like that. Like especially what they really need is someone to help O'Neal Cruz. Like the kid's going to be a stud if he gets the right coaching, but he just swings and misses so much, which is fine. Like you look at Aaron Judge, he has to strike out a lot. That strike zone's so big. It's just he strikes out so much, and when he makes contact, it's hit hard, but it's ineffective contact a lot of the time. And that's why he barely graded out above average. But it's really good to see like Brian Reynolds is just a legit stud. He just happens to be on like a dog crap team. And like maybe if they were to find like a way to become something in the next 5 years, you can extend him now for like a little bit less AAV and have him be like the real forefront of that rebuild, rise back up. But honestly, like this season lived on the fact that they traded Jose Quintana and Daniel Vogelbach.
Yeah. I don't know what it is about the Pirates and me watching them, but every game that I watched this season, there was a hat trick. That I watched my Giants play against the Pirates, and Jack Swinsky, a guy who never runs into the baseball, hit 3 home runs that game. And I was like, this guy's next up. This guy's next. He hit a couple more home runs, but he was not the guy. And then I went to a Nats game over the summer with Stavs. Brian Reynolds just destroyed us, 3 home runs. And I think didn't this team have the most like rookie home runs in a season? At least for that Pirates organization, they broke their own record for most rookie home runs. So I can't say the future looks incredibly bright. There's not many recognizable names, but I don't know. I don't know the direction on this team. They're not very interesting to watch. I think there's gonna be years ahead where they're better though.
Yeah, I think the rebuild has definitely gone on the way up. I know there was a couple questions just going around of what do you want to do with Brian Reynolds? I think Brad said re-sign him, have him be the forefront of this. He's 27, so he still has good 5 more years, 6 more years left in him. But maybe do you possibly just not? I'm not saying trade him, but explore the possibility, see what maybe you could get. I know you want some veteran presence, for this young of a team. But it's just a question of, hey, what should we do with him? But no, this is the Pirate season I saw coming. I just this off season, I don't know what they can do. Maybe get some pitching. I think they definitely need pitching. And maybe some 1-2 year things to flip at the deadline and continue this rebuild because I think they're going to be in this for another 2-3 seasons.
They can't keep doing what they've been doing, which is bringing up talent and then trading them. They can't do that again with Brian, like with fuck. No.
Hayes and
Yeah.
Hey, we're cut. So
yeah.
what were we saying before that?
Hold on. I'm just gonna reset because I was like in a groove and I couldn't think of Brian Reynolds. I want to say Brian Roberts, and I was like, that's not a name that's on the Pirates.
How did we manage to make this the longest episode?
We
Dude,
talked about
I
the
was ready to
fucking
sit
Cardinals
down.
for 45 minutes.
Computer science exam tomorrow. That's what I have. I have
Okay,
to go.
hold on. I got it.
So steps, speak your thing and then transition it into grades. Right, Brad, you're good.
Say goodbye, then fucking hang up that bitch.
Yeah.
Okay.
So no. Speak your
I
mind.
got it.
Go to grades, and then have Brad be the last one to give his grades so he can wrap it up.
Got it.
Okay, Tom, you hear that? Brad's the last one to go.
Aidan, you salty bitch.
No,
Tom,
Aidan,
breathe.
You are so flabbergasted.
Breathe.
Go ahead, Steps. Go ahead, Steps.
I just ripped ass.
they can't keep doing this cycle that they've been in for the past decade where they get good players and then they keep trading them at the deadline. They can't do it with Brian Reynolds and Brian Hayes. They can't keep doing it over and over again. And it's just something I hate watching as a baseball fan because I like when players stay with the same team for their whole career. And it just sucks when a team does it on repeat over and over again. They did it with Tyler Glasnow and Garrett Cole and guys like that. And it's terrible to watch. But let's get into grades. And for the Pirates, I had them at a C just because it wasn't an amazing season. It wasn't a terrible season. They're the Pittsburgh Pirates. What more can you expect from them?
Yeah, they didn't have many trade pieces, so I wouldn't say like their deadline was crazy. I mean, getting rid of Vogelback, I mean Big Daddy Vogelback and Quintana wasn't necessarily like the most crazy deadline. And I initially had them down as a C, but I think I put them as a D just because in comparison to the Reds, they're just a level below. And I mean, when you tank and don't manage to rebuild at the same time, then it's all for nothing. So I don't know. They're a decent farm system. Maybe good, be decent in the future, but right now can't give a good grade. Aiden, what you think?
Yeah, no, I have them at a C minus. C minus. Again another team I want to fence between a C minus and a D plus. The only reason I'm giving them a C minus is because it was kind of towards the end of the season, kind of flashy. You brought up O'Neal Cruz, and he kind of, put them back. He made them watchable. You want to see, hey, what is O'Neal Cruz going to do today? And I mean, I feel like every game he played in, there was something, whether it was 120-mile-per-hour throw, whatever he did, or 180-mile-per-hour home run, this or that. Yeah, they were fun to watch. So, Brad, what would you give them?
Honestly, I gave them the best thing I can give them. That one is my D. Like the Pirates just weren't that good. The thing that I see is that they keep trading away like B-tier trade deadline candidates. And when you keep doing that and you kind of have these guys come up and they're not exceptional, like you're not getting any stars come up besides Brian Reynolds, you kind of fall into what the Orioles became. Like a team that's going to be stuck losing a lot of games for a really long time. And I don't think it's as bad as a team like you'll hear about tomorrow, the Rockies, but I do think they're on a course headed for disaster if they don't fix things soon. And this season really didn't help that direction, so I gave them a D. So with that, you've heard the Central, you've heard the East. Tomorrow you'll hear the West. Thank you all for joining us. Be sure to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. We'll catch you all tomorrow with the National League West recap. Peace.
I like
Aidan,
men.
Aidan,